Hello and welcome to the Medyo Serious Talk Show with me, Red Ollero. Ang topic natin ngayon, bakit kailangan iwasan ang mga plastic na bagay? At ang guest po namin ngayon ay si Marian Ledesma, Zero Waste Campaigner from Greenpeace. I redirect the question to our expert dahil wala akong alam. Ako lang yung naka-necktie dito. Pero if you would give it a grade, nauso yan ngayon sa aking mga in-interview. 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Sa, overall nationally, kamusta ang waste management natin?
On paper, yung polisiya natin sa Pilipinas, I would think it was one of the best when it came out 20 years ago.
Oh,
But in enforcement and in reality, mababa talaga yung score niya. I would give it like probably a 4.
a 4? Okay.
I mean, because fragmented siya, it's a decentralized siya na policy. Although national yung batas, yung pagka-enforce, nag-iiba siya from city to city, municipality to municipality. So that's where yung challenges, kasi merong mga ibang LGUs that do have resource challenges. Like kulang yung budget nila for it, or they don't have dedicated people to be able to carry out yung kailangan gawin. Pero dahil sobrang tagal na rin yung law na ito, yung RA 9003, yung Republic Act na to has been around for over 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and hindi lang siya na-enforce ng maayos. Pero at the time when it was released, it was one of the most progressive sana na waste management law. And naisip talaga lahat, like, it has very different mga measures for it, for waste avoidance, for waste recovery, segregation at source. Yung pagka-implement lang ng batas yung challenge natin. But there are also opportunities na hindi na take up at hindi na enforce in the law that could have helped us avoid this current situation that we have.
It's a very dire situation, no? Or hindi naman sobra ba?
I do think it's a massive
Okay. Malala.
problem. Massive talaga kasi if titingnan mo yung waste in the Philippines, bawat araw, 61,000 metric tons yung nakokolekta. So that's 22 million tons plus every year.
Yeah.
And of that 22 million, 2.7 million are plastic waste.
Wow.
So, and that's
2.7 million tons?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a huge amount when you think about it, na challenge. And in terms of composition ng waste, 54% yun. Organic waste biodegradable. So there's actually a lot of opportunities sana na magagawa natin para mabawasan tong total na number of waste. When it comes to plastics, there's definitely more that can be done in terms of policy, in terms of regulations around corporations, making them more accountable for the plastics that they produce.
Medyo if you look at the numbers, parang ang hirap nang i-quantify kasi you barely hear what tons mean, no? Pero literally, i-Google Translate nyo na i-convert nyo lang yung tons sa kilos. Malalaman nyo kung anong malaking, kung gaano kalaki yung problema natin. But ngayon, status quo. So, you're saying how many metric tons again? Sorry?
Yung plastic?
Yung overall waste that we collect?
More than 22 million.
22 million. And this ends up sa landfills natin? Or anong
depends.
status quo collection niya?
For most of them, it will get sent to landfills or sanitary landfills. There's also a portion that supposedly would get composted. And then meron rin dyan na pwede sanang ma-recycle. And then there are other items that probably could have had like a second life in a sense na can be reused or repurposed. So yun lang yung challenges with that. I think also getting enough data to figure out where exactly are these items or yung waste na pupunta. And we do have challenges in that sense na nagre-rely rin yung national government agencies on the reporting of different cities and municipalities kasi decentralized yung system.
So, itong mga to, we're not entirely sure if everything's properly processed or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, on a global level, just for one category alone, and I keep saying plastics because that's what I focus on. Ever since nagawa yung plastic in the 1950s na talagang commercial na widespread, less than 10% have been recycled. So ilang dekada na out of all the plastics produced.
Sa Pinas lang to?
No, globally.
In the world, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not just a problem sa Philippines actually. It's a global issue na needs to be tackled.
So 90% of it is not recycled. That means it just remains as waste somewhere where they end up in. So it could be the seas, it could be land, it could be bakanting lote, it could be nakabara sa kanal, ganun.
Na leakage sa environment natin, yun, basura na makikita natin. And then some of it breaks down and it ends up contaminating yung food systems natin. For example, merong isang study, yung MSU, Mindanao State University, na pinalabas nila in the last year or so. There's been microplastics found sa bangus, sa hangin sa Metro Manila.
Wow.
And
so
other
we're breathing plastic ngayon?
Yeah, technically.
That's nice.
We're inhaling and ingesting plastics. And hindi yun sinasabi ng mga eksperto, ng mga scientists to scare us. It's really to, para mamumulat sila, to raise awareness about it na this is what's happening, ito prevalent yung issue na ginagawa. And it's also to incentivize and influence yung mga policymakers, yung mga kumpanya na to do something about this issue kasi hindi lang naman ito individual level na problem, you know. The responsibility doesn't fall on individual consumers or you and me. It's a systemic issue. So it needs systemic solutions, and that's policies, that's changing or redesigning yung business models.
Hopefully properly enforced.
Yeah, properly enforced dapat. And then, of course, it's collective action pa rin. I mean, people have to buy into it. Kailangan silang, they have to be on board with it. Pero importante na may framework na tayo, na eto na yung bagong system or way of doing things coming from governments, coming from businesses, because at the end of the day, limitado rin yung mga Pilipino, yung every individual, with the choices they have. Kung ano lang yung choices or options na nandun, that's what we're getting. That's what we can choose. Pero if we had more options coming from businesses, example, redesigning the way they distribute yung produkto nila, kung paano natin makukuha yung goods that we need, it'll make things easier for people to shift.
So, hindi lang siya tipong, hindi siya solvable by brainwashing people. Yung sobrang sama ng ano. Pero kunwari, hindi lang siya consumer problem.
Yeah.
So, we can actually do something to enforce a certain kind of policy or system, and then very solvable siya. Is it really collection lang ng basura yung problema, or dapat ba properly treated siya, properly segregated?
Yeah, it's a lot of different components yung kailangan gagawin kasi hindi lang naman sa collection yung problem. I mean, those are usually carried out by mga third parties kasi 'di ba bawat LGU may own a system of how they do it. But at the same time, kailangan rin na we have to address yung problem at source, and that's really where waste reduction comes in. So before pa magiging basura siya, baka may ways na to prevent it from being produced, or before it has to enter yung waste stream na papunta na sa mga landfills or potential, baka madadivert na natin yung basura. Talked earlier about food or organic na waste. One of those things that can be done is mako-compost siya. And then there's value in that organic or biodegradable waste kasi pwede siya maging inputs for food production, pwede siya maging fertilizer, di ba? So, that is already a huge chunk. More than 50%. You're already removing that. Pero hindi yun siya na take up na opportunity. When it comes naman to residual wastes, materials na really hindi na siya ma-treat, hindi na pupunta na lang talaga siya sa landfill, yung residual waste, like plastics. then we can talk about how we can completely reduce or eliminate that at the source. So, really thinking about measures na kailangan to reduce plastic production, to find bans for single-use plastics. And then, to help with that, kasi kailangan naman kapag may ban, we also have to do just transition for it. Kailangan na when we take something away from consumers that have limited access to goods, we're also providing them na may alternatibo tayo, and that would be in the form of like reuse or refill systems. Hindi naman kailangan na if magsa-stop tayo ng gumamit ng plastic straw, automatic yung sagot is paper straw. Kasi disposable rin, basura rin yun.
Yun nga.
So really, it is about finding reusable items or entire reuse systems. And I know it's a very, baka hindi familiar yung mga tao sa reuse systems, pero actually ginagawa na siya natin basically for decades na. One example of a reuse system is, di ba, yung mga soda soft drinks na naka-glass na bote.
Yes.
Before, bibili tayo, bibigay tayo ng maliit na deposit, and then we take it home. Pag tapos na, kunin natin yung deposit. That's a reuse system kasi nagagamit several times yung bote. And that's just one example of it. Another model under the reuse na universe is yung refill naman. So, one project that Greenpeace is doing in collaboration with Quezon City and San Juan City was we modeled refilling. Nagdadala ng malalaking dispensers sa sari-sari stores, and it's to replace sachets. Magdadala ka lang ng container mo, magre-refill ka doon ng dishwashing liquid, Fabcon, laundry detergent. Hindi ka nabibili ng sachets, and then you're just reusing your container multiple times. Nandun siya sa barangay nyo, and mura rin siya. We really wanted to show na it's possible to have alternatives to sachets na equal or cheaper yung price ng mga sachets, at nabibigyan ng choice yung mga tao about choosing to go plastic-free. Now they can do it without any
incentivize pa sila because mas mura, di ba? Parang ganun.
Exactly.
So it's really nice. Pero ang problema dyan, may mga, I guess, mga big brands or parang may mga malalaking brands na they would, ang nire-dispense nila is nakasanayan na nila ng mga disposable, mga sachet, mga pet bottles, ganyang klase. How do you get them to shift, di ba? Meron bang plans or parang may play ba around it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that one project that we're doing, and hindi naman lang Greenpeace yung gumagawa yun, mayroong ibang organizations, ibang LGUs that are doing something similar. It's really to show yung viability ng business model na ganyan, na kapag nagre-refill tayo ng mga produkto, hindi single-use na plastic packaging, posible rin to deliver that. And then it's also to give them information kung like how they would do that system for their own products, ano ba yung pwede nilang gawin for their own distribution. And at the same time, it is a bit frustrating kung tingnan mo kasi yung these big companies, they know na poor yung infrastructure ng Pilipinas when it comes to waste management. And then ano pa tayo, archipelago pa tayo. So different islands, hindi tayo talaga create ng that kind of waste management system seen in other countries. So they know this, and they know yung pitfalls and challenges around waste management, where they still keep using single-use plastic.
Kunwari, kung ito mas sikat to na issue, people will be on it because people will look good when they type on their Twitter or the X that they support this, di ba? And everything. Yun yung reality that I observe. Parang it's not a hot, sexy issue to die on a hill on, parang ganun, di ba? How do you improve this branding problem, I think?
I think people
it's not sexy, alam mo yun, di ba?
I know, and then minsan people don't see it as something that directly impacts them, but I think slowly people are coming to realize na, directly pala ako impacted by this problem. Because there are more and more studies na lumalabas about yung health implications ng plastic.
Yeah.
Also yung mga food systems natin na contaminated by it. And at the same time, ano yung interconnection niya sa iba't ibang problema na sinastruggle ng mga tao.
Yung flood.
Yeah,
diba?
exactly.
Like, yun yung pinaka-diretsong parang natin na
experience.
Yeah,
Oo. And naaalala lang natin kapag may baha, may baha na. I think what really is important is people feel yung connection nila, how they personally are impacted by this.
Yeah.
And it could be in terms of health, it could be in terms of what your community is facing. Kasi merong mga ibang komunidad na katabi, for example, ng plastic production facilities na they don't realize ano yung risks na what they're at risk for, basically, from all of those emissions, ano yung mga microplastics, even besides facilities that are processing plastics for like waste treatment. Kapag sinashred yung plastics, it can start releasing microplastics into the air. In some facilities
so may ano pa pala, dapat may standardization din of how to recycle these things.
And there are global efforts now to try to address it. But surprisingly enough, nagpa-poll yung Greenpeace, I think it was earlier this year. And we asked over 1,000 Filipinos to respond to what their concerns were, what the solutions they think. Over 90% yung want action on plastic pollution. They agree with reducing plastic production. And the Philippines actually, in that whole poll na ginawa in 19 countries, yung mga Pilipino yung pinaka-aware, pinaka-mulat, and pinaka-supportive about different kinds of solutions when it comes to plastic pollution. So it is there. It is...
may willingness tayo. We want the change, pero, di ba,
it really still depends.
Nagsasagot ng survey sa I guess.
They want the change, but I think it needs more than just people wanting it. It
Yes.
also has to move yung government to do something. It has to also, that change has to come from the businesses, because you can only do so much as an individual or a consumer.
I think if there are avenues for it, like kunwari, that's as simple as I buy something, parang I buy this cleaning product from this certain brand, and they do like, if you bring back the bottle and you refill it, you save like 60%. Parang gano'n.
Yeah, there are some
So, mas incentivize ako to go.
I know.
Yeah.
Babalik ka talaga doon to do the
Oh.
refilling. There are some businesses that are doing that na bibili ka yung first buy mo of this container. Pagbalik mo, may bawas na.
Yeah.
And that's like a question that we pose sa mga big na brands.
Yeah.
Is that if small businesses can afford to do it, bakit hindi kayo mag-set up ng ganyong sistema? And it's also about showing them na, your profits are in the billions when you look at yung mga multinational na companies. Billion yung kita nila. A small percentage of investment into building these reuse and refill systems can go a long way. At hindi naman na you're actually spreading rin yung benefits. May kita kayo, pero positive yung benefits na napupunta sa komunidad. Babawas yung basura sa kanila. Meron ring savings yung consumers when it comes to it.
Plus, they can spin the whole thing as a brand improvement.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're good at that, di ba?
I know. We can market it as our social responsibility push.
Hindi naman sponsoran tong show. Pero, di ba? Pero tama, di ba? They're so equipped to do that. It's just I guess a choice of someone, or take a leap or something, di ba? Parang ganun yung dating. If it's available, if there's a more environmentally friendly, and the people who I think would be more willing kung makakamura ako, one, and then pangalawa, there's this added kind of like, ano mo yun, like, kunwari, I buy an iPhone, tas sabihin nila, yung red na iPhone goes to Red Cross, yung profit.
I know, yeah.
I'll buy the red one then. Alam mo yun?
Exactly.
Ganun lang kasimple yung, it's not because parang dahil martir ako at kailangan kong tumulong at bayani ako. It's just because I literally shift my mouse click a centimeter down and I instantly help people. So parang yun yung parang as I think it's such a problem na alam ng mga tao, like, you have the surveys, no, na alam ng mga tao na may problema talaga. They're aware that this plastic so and so is bad. 'Di ba? You would think na parang there's a lot of follow up to it. Kasi it's such a parang alam ng mga tao na mali siya, 'di ba? Bakit kaya wala? Is that a hard question for you?
I think, no. I
We can
mean,
discuss.
marami pa naman tayong time.
Sino-sino?
No, it's a good question. I think because yung systems natin are so dependent na on, for one thing, like disposable material, single-use plastics.
Pag nanonood ako ng Quadcom meeting, parang daming maliliit na bote.
It's so easy na it's there, and then naka-lock in na yung systems natin to those kinds of materials, products, and mga packaging. So it makes it very difficult, pero at the same time, hindi siya imposible na i-decouple natin, i-separate natin yung mga proseso natin, operations, the way we do business or the way we live our lives can be separated naman from depending on everything that's throwaway.
Minsan yung SMEs pa, sila pa yung merong
Nagli-lead,
biodegradable
exactly.
na supot, na bote,
Or mga zero waste,
mga
plastic
zero waste
free.
na, yeah, exactly. So ako parang, why the SMEs can do it and turn a profit? I hope they turn a profit. Pero, di ba, the big ones parang they're really turning their cheek against it. Malaki din kasi yung I think kailangan to urge a brand to kind of like do something so monumental. It's a huge lateral step. So nagigets ko rin naman kung bilyonaryo ka and you wanna, keep the money.
Keep the status quo.
Keep status quo lang. What is working, di ba? Baka mamaya wala na sa Shay, ayaw na namin, wala sa Shay. Di ba? Walang mukha ni ganito, walang mukha ni ganyan. Di ba? Yan alam eh. Pero that's been like, parang tinatry kong ipasok sa utak ko na parang, bakit hindi, parang nobody has used this angle in a big way na parang feeling ko meron talaga siyang image problem. Yun yung yun yung tingin ko. And it sucks kasi it's such a great advocacy. Alam mo yun? And I always see videos na mag-viral. Always nag-viral to. Clips of Shark Tank ideas that are upcycled things that you used to create houses. A new way to dispense single-use shampoo and conditioner. Mga it's made of parang some organic film, mga ganong klase, or spoon and fork na pwede mong kainin, mga ganong klase, mga ganong. Tapos parang they're always going viral. And then na-realize ko, kailangan makakarating to sa grocery ko. I don't see them at all, di ba? So parang,
I think it's ganun? Also this weird fascination with like technological na innovation na people find it exciting and sexy, but sometimes the answer is just going back to our roots, yung tradition. Kasi as I mentioned earlier, yung reuse and refill, ginagawa na natin for ilang decades before plastics were introduced. Di ba? So, and people might not realize that they should reclaim that tradition, yung that culture. Like, people blame tingi culture, pero tingi culture just became about plastics and sachets so recently. Before, tingi was defined by sustainable practices na nagdadala yung tao, kukuha lang ng kailangan niya na volume ng amount. And then that's enough. Own naman na malagayan, container, yung dinadala sa palengke, dinadala sa sari-sari store. But it has been changed so much. And I think if Filipinos should be proud of those roots na sustainable naman yung ginagawa natin before. So it should be brought back to that.
So there's a weird parang mali yung nabiblame na kind of culture na rin. It's not because we buy in small amounts. It's because it's dispensed in small amounts. Parang ganun.
Because of the packaging that it comes in. Hindi naman na mali na bibili tayo ng konti-konti patingi-tingi. Pero it's just the way it's being sold on a commercial scale. So, hindi talaga to blame yung mga consumers for needing just the right amounts. It really is just about telling businesses na ibahin nyo lang, redesign nyo kung paano nyo i-deliver yung produkto nyo to these consumers that need it the most.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they have naman all these resources to do it. They have, I think, the supply chain, because they're so massive and big, they can also have influence and dictate kung paano ma-change yung supply chain, mababago yung supply chain natin. That's really key for it. Kailangan yun. But they won't do anything if hindi sila pagsasabihan. So,
Tama.
kailangan rin may batas rin na sasabihin na kailangan yung magbawas ng plastic footprint yung. Kailangan yung mag-shift away from disposable packaging. So, whether that's a ban in different kinds of single-use plastics or targets to reduce their plastic production and use, that can be done. Technically, we already have it in our law. I mean, the EPR law, Extended Producer's Responsibility Law, may target siya for collection, for recovery ng mga businesses. So, percentage of the plastic that they produce, they have to recover. Pero, can you imagine if sasabihin rin ng government na we want this percentage to be reduced rin. Hindi lang recover kasi yung recovery is only collection for plastic waste.
Gets.
It overlooks yung negative na mga impacts, yung masasamang epekto na in producing plastics, yung pag-extract ng fossil fuels to make plastic. May connection sa klima. If they just said, eto, we need you to reduce your plastic production by 50%, for example. We need you to invest and shift your portfolio, your sales units, 10% will be reuse, 20% will be refill. Kapag may batas na, they will be required to change it and shift rin. Pero for as long as wala pa dun, they can say na, yun nga, status quo, business as usual pa rin. I-ensure lang nila na magkokolekta sila or mag-recovery effort sila for it. But that only answers one part of the problem.
So, kailangan, wag nang dagdagan yung kukolektahin, no? Parang gano'n.
I mean, they can collect it, oo. Di ba? I mean,
mismo,
hindi na sila magkakaproblema about collecting if it's not there in the first place.
But revolution kasi ang plastic eh. It really swept industrialization by storm. When people started putting their drinks in plastic bottles and started dispensing things in like tiny plastic sachets. Parang it really drove up industrialization by like
it's
intense, di ba? Ayoko magsabi ng percentage, pero I'm pretty sure nag-benefit yung mga tao. Ano, natin kailangan collectin bote natin, di ba? Wala nang problema, di ba?
It was branded or marketed as a miracle product nang ginawa siya. I mean, di ba, miracle material daw siya. Pero when they came up with it, I don't think they realized yung implications ng pag-produce ng plastics na decades later, we're at this point na parang, okay, nakakatulong siya at first as we thought, but then in the reality is, hindi pala. Marami palang negative impacts na hindi natin in-expect. And that also, I guess, comes hand in hand na sobra rin yung overproduction and also a lot overconsumption in a way na both of those things led
mga bagay, I guess.
I know. Everything's cheaper. Natin. And then, pwede ka na magpa-deliver or gano'n.
I wanted to mention that na parang, alam mo yun, parang we're also hell-bent on like, huwag tayo mag-straw. But then, when we order, pag online shopping tayo, we go through like kilos of bubble wrap and wrapping paper. Did that have like a significant impact on things?
There was a rise, especially ng pandemic when limited yung mobility ng mga tao. Talagang nag-depend sila on deliveries, e-commerce. So that did have an impact, and makikita mo rin yan sa ibang bansa na people now are so used na one click away, nandyan na yung gusto mo. One click away, may instant ka na pagkain.
Ang intense ng online shopping natin.
I know. Parang hindi na nag-die down
and
after
we came
the
from
pandemic.
a culture na ayaw natin mag-credit card, ayaw natin ayaw natin ng non-cash transactions, ayaw na natin yun. And then to think, di ba?
Ngayon, it's so easy na to do it. I think that is one factor in about how we look at yung, again, system naman siya kasi unfortunately, it was designed that way to make it easy for us to consume more. Bili-bili ka kasi sobrang easy lang to get whatever it is you need. And nasanay na yung mga consumers. Pero at the same time, I think there are ways to also make that as reduce yung waste coming from that particular
Baka huwag sila
business
manggigil sa
model.
bubble wrap masyado. Minsan
I know.
intense Parang grabe.
Kahit t-shirt.
Hindi ko na mabuksan Parang kailangan ba i-bubble wrap talaga tong ano na to?
Oo.
'Di ba? Hindi naman siya sobrang kailangan. Pati yung scotch tape.
Yeah. I know. And meron mga small businesses, online sellers on these platforms na, for example, sasabihin nila na gusto sana namin na packaging free na, pero hindi tatanggapin ng delivery person kasi hindi daw nakabalot. Pero kahit gusto na ng consumer at gusto na ng store na wala na lang plastic or wala na lang kahit paper na wrap, hindi tatanggapin. So again, pwede yan ma-change with regulations, with kahit internal na company policy that will say, okay, we'll start accepting na items na hindi naman kailangang i-package. Like, hindi babasagin, so why do you need to do it?
Ba't kailangan ibalot? Parang may balot na may balutin mo pa. May ganun. Para lang may madikitan or something like that. It's such a weird thing that we grew into. And at the same time, itong mga to, who knows where they end up in, di ba? Like, they could end up nga sa, you mentioned kanina, we could end up in our food, in our air, sa sea, may mga tao naman. Kasi, ang usual na nakita ng mga tao na, recycle niya yung plastic kasi kawawa naman yung ibon na merong
wrap na.
May wrapper ng 6-pack dito. Wala na nga nag-wrapper ng ganun. Wala tuloy naubos, wala tuloy 6-pack. Yun lang yung sinolve nila. Baka yung turtle na hinugutan ng straw sa ilong, parang yun yung nagiging symbol nila, ito yung epekto ng plastic. Hindi nila alam, it's really everything.
Yeah, it's everything and everywhere. Kasi if like, you think about it, meron ng mga scientists na nakakita ng plastic bag on Mount Everest, highest part of the world, deepest part of the ocean, may nakita rin silang plastic bag. So
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's literally everywhere and sometimes we don't see it kasi yun nga, microplastic siya or nasa loob na ng bodies natin. There are studies from abroad that find traces of micro and nanoplastics in our blood, in certain organs, sa placenta ng mga babae. So, and again, it's not this scare tactic. It's just there na be aware that this is happening.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean,
nasa lasa, guys. Hindi
mo lang alam. Ini-inhale mo na pala. But at the same time, more than yung microplastic na thing, meron rin kasing mga risks. Like, for example, there's 16,000 chemicals that are being used for different kinds of plastics. One-fourth, about 4,200. Hazardous siya. Hazardous siya na, technically hazardous siya, pero walang regulations to prevent their use from plastics. So, some of them are carcinogenic, some of them, nakaka-cancer, or some of them change or disrupt yung mga developmental natin na mga processes.
And these are like used for food, gano'n?
For different kinds of plastic. It could be food, it could be packaging.
Wow.
So, that's actually one of the things that they're looking at sa Global Plastics Treaty. So, yung Plastics Treaty, it's a UN na legally binding siya na kasunduan. With hindi lang siya pa-effect.
I was gonna ask about that. So, anong meron sa Global Plastic Treaty?
So, sa treaty na ito, kasunduan siya between different UN na mga countries, nations.
Kasama pa ba tayo dyan?
Oo, kasama pa tayo. Hindi ba tayo umalis?
Hindi ko pa alam
And what's great is yung Philippines, in the past na negotiation, has called for plastic production cuts. Maganda sa treaty na ito kasi hindi lang basura or plastic waste yung focus niya. Yung focus niya is yung buong life cycle ng plastic. So from the start where they're extracting fossil fuels to make 99% of plastics during the plastic production stage, yung paggawa ng plastic, so yung chemicals na pinapasok sa plastic, hanggang sa disposal ng plastic, covered yon ng treaty. That's the mandate of it. So, importante na makikip ng mga bansayan na full siya na comprehensive approach para hindi lang siya magiging waste management treaty. It really will be about more than...
From end-to-end siya.
Yeah, end-to-end siya, essentially. And kasama na yung solutions doon sa pinaka-root of the problem, which is the overproduction of plastics. Yung Pilipinas, yung position ng Philippines has been to support reducing plastic production. And what we really hope is that hindi na mag-iba, that the Philippine government maintain this position na supportahan yung pagbawas ng production. At the same time, mag-ano rin siya, mag-take on different kinds of positions like finding ways to ban the most problematic of plastics, finding ways to eliminate or phase out yung sinasabi nating chemicals of concern. So those hazardous chemicals, dapat non-toxic na yung plastics and other products that we're looking at.
Making a treaty is one thing. I mean, we already have, yun nga, may Republic Act na may policy na tayo and everything, yet hindi pa rin na-enforce, no? Pero I think, dahil it's such a global thing, and I think it's gonna make it a little bit more sexy or a little bit more cool. Diba? Hopefully na parang...
Ginagawa to sa ibang bansa.
Ginagawa to sa ibang bansa. Gawin na natin or something like that. Hopefully people be more aware of it or parang they urge kasi ano tayo, we're approaching election season, national election season. So baka i-consider natin yung mga taong with policies regarding enforcing our waste management or yung waste reduction natin. Baka isipin nyo yun. Next election, please.
Yeah, it should be a policy agenda.
That's always, yun yung recurring theme. I think when we tackle different problems here sa Medyo Serious Talk Show, it always ends up as, well, bumoto kayo ng tama.
It's true. I mean, people don't realize yung power ng vote nila at ano yung magcha-change. Huwag nyo na hintayin yung next na baha or next na typhoon that comes in or yung problema ng basura sa komunidad nyo.
You would think na we would recycle more as a nation. Parang feeling ko very recycling people tayo. Like pati yung mga parol natin recycled, mga design ng bahay recycled, baso, di ba?
I think it like the people want to be resourceful. Yung Pilipino is really into solutions. When you consider that we're talking about reuse, reduce, recycle, supportive sila. And they want to do it. Pero yung recycling kasi has so many challenges rin. Like, our infrastructure here sa Pilipinas, I said, archipelago, iba-ibang isla. So, challenge yun. That's one thing. But then there's also the reality na recycling isn't infinite kasi. Hindi siya infinite na process. So,
Gets. Okay. So you can't just keep recycling.
Like that same product can't be recycled
yung
forever.
Yung ginawa mong parol na bote ng soft drinks, tinapon mo rin yun.
Pupunta pa rin.
Yung sinasabi ng, meron pa, we were driving somewhere, tapos parang, uy, tiga mo, buti pa sila, nag-recycle sila. Ako yung naging wet blanket. Kasi tinapon din nila tapos.
Sana hindi na.
Sana hindi.
Pero like, kahit yung like piece of paper, like yung paper fibers at saka yung tinatawag natin na plastic polymers. But basically parang chain sila that make up a piece of plastic. Sa bawat recycle mo, each rotation of recycling, nagsho-shorten sila, binabawasan sila. Umiikli and then yung quality nagde-decrease.
Okay. So hindi infinite ang gamit mo sa
recycling.
Take out container ganun.
So for example, yung I don't know, a plastic cup, i-recycle ko. That piece of plastic can technically only be recycled 2 to 3 times.
I see.
Before it's not suitable anymore for recycling. Yun yung data na like coming from the UN,
Is there any like immediate danger, kunwari, itong pinang-take out ko ng pagkain, maganda ng container, gamitin ko ulit.
Like, there is, for example, if na-expose siya sa high heat,
na microwave mo.
Merong ibang plastics that are designed na pwede, microwave safe. Merong iba na hindi. And then there are those that technically pwede, pero nagde-degrade na over time. So, when it's exposed kasi sa heat, yung mga chemicals na nandoon, hindi siya completely binded together. So, unti-unti, it will start leaching. And that's one pathway na magli-leak yung chemical and you can get exposed to it.
Okay.
In recycling, it also happens. So, if may problematic na chemical dito na nakaka-harm ng health, i-recycle mo yung produkto na yan that has the toxic chemical. It goes through the mechanical recycling process. Paglabas doon, yung bagong product will still have
those
that
things.
toxic chemical. So, tina-transfer lang siya and na-extend yung
It's much harder than we thought na. No, guys, nakakala mo parang, hindi, inulit
And
ko
I'm
tong
not
container na
saying
to.
don't stop recycling, but
We're all failing.
no, it's so bad.
No, pero tama.
We're not
extent.
saying that it needs to be improved, definitely, and then kailangan ma-remove yung
Doon yung
toxics.
mentality, the willingness to do it now to kind of like steer them towards the right direction is what we're waiting for. Parang ganun, di ba?
So it's there. It just needs to be complemented. Like if people are already doing this, dapat may complementary na gagawin sa simula pa lang. And that's what Greenpeace is calling for na. Okay, mag-ban tayo, magbawas tayo ng plastics. And then, for the plastics na nag-i-exist na, yung mga nandyan na nabasura, doon tayo magpo-focus ng downstream or waste management efforts.
Okay.
So, it has to be both. Kasi that's the only way na masosolve natin yung problem. Like, scientists and like economic experts have done modeling kung ano talaga yung different pathways na to eliminate leakage of plastics in our environment. And kailangan na ganun. Kailangan may reduction ng plastic production, may bans, and then may shift sa circular systems like reuse, refill, repair, ganun. And then may good na waste management. So recycling, recovery. It has to be an effort na across the board. Hindi lang na mag-focus tayo on recycling and recovery kasi yun na yung nandyan. To solve the problem, it has to be like collective na effort.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much. I wish we had an extra hour to talk about all of these things. But thank you so much, Miss Marian.
It was nice meeting you.
Appreciate all the things that you guys do. The Medyo Series Talk Show is on at One News every Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. At kung wala kayong TV, dahil nagtitipid kayo sa waste, di ko alam kung recycle, di ba?
E-waste,
Today, nag-end up ba sa landfill ng mga TV? And okay.
Yeah, supposedly not.
Okay. So, kung nagtitipid kayo sa mga screen sa bahay nyo at wala kayong TV at gusto nyo manood online, it is on YouTube. Just search the Medyo Series Talk Show. And the episode will come out also every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you so much.